Hey everybody, welcome to Career Coaching with Carol. So for today's video, I want to address the top few questions. I think I'll pick the top 5 questions people ask when they're job searching. And what I did to get these questions partly was just informed from all the 20-some years of career coaching I've been doing, but I just wanted to see what was current and trending. So if you can believe it, I did a ChatGPT prompt asking, what does Google say people are asking for? So number 1, how do I write a resume that stands out? And by the way, this video, I'm just going to give you a quick overview for answers to these questions, because each of the answers could take a good amount of time. So then I'll have separate videos that you can go to for a more elaborate answer. But if you're wondering, how do I make my resume stand out? I would say be very careful about making your resume stand out visually. There is a tendency for people to want to include a picture or color or graphics and things like that. Those are not advised, partly because they don't do well with most applicant tracking systems, but also I think they distract from the content, which is everything that you bring to the table, all of your years of experience or education and or certifications, all the things that clearly show how and why you're the best candidate. Those should be the focus. So really, I recommend just a black font only, use bold sparingly. Don't include like the 2-column situation where the far left side is like 3 pieces of information and then all the rest of your content's jammed on the right side with white space on the left. That's just kind of crazy talk. I do have a free template that I have created and used over the years that both works for applicant tracking systems and employers have told me they like to see. So I will link that for this video. But I would focus more on making sure your content matches the job description very, very closely, like 100% closely. Again, for more on that information in terms of do's and don'ts for resumes, I'll have a video below. Okay, number 2, how do I prepare for a job interview? There are lots of ways, of course, but for me, the interview preparation starts well before the interview itself and certainly even the day before. I have lots of workshops where I cover these topics, and inevitably people say, I really hadn't thought about most of that. So a couple of quick things I would say about preparing for an interview. One is, if you have strategically created a resume, which you should do, that addresses the job posting, you should get a good sense of how and why you're the best candidate. If you find out you get an interview, as soon as you find out you get an interview, I would start using the keywords in that job posting in your everyday language, especially if you're making a career transition or you're a new graduate. If you're getting into IT, for example, troubleshooting should be part of your everyday language. Or if there's certain software the job requires, you want to start bringing that up with people around you, because ideally the preparation that you do way before makes those kinds of things very seamless and part of your natural conversation during. Another big thing you can do is practice using your resume. You can have people ask you questions. You can go to ChatGPT and say, here's the job description. What are the most likely questions if you want? And I want to be clear, I don't recommend memorizing answers, but you can practice using your resume to answer whatever question they give you. I'm a big proponent that really any question they ask, if you understand your resume and what you wrote there, you can use your resume to answer those questions. Of course, there are other things you can do in terms of making sure your clothes fit, making sure they're ironed, making sure that you are properly groomed. And when you're thinking about, okay, well, what clothes should I wear? Generally speaking, you go at least business casual or professional dress. Do some research on the company and figure out what the brand of that company calls for, of course. But if you do these things, and of course, a lot of other things that I'll put in another video, what will happen is you will walk into the interview already knowing you're the best candidate. And what that does is it allows you to kind of sit back with the regular or normal posture and just have a conversation with the person. You don't have to have all the right answers. And again, don't memorize answers, but your preparation is key. So the big takeaway there is, if you're looking at how to prepare, start preparing as soon as you get notice that you have the interview. And of course, there are lots of tips for virtual interviews that I'll link in a separate video as well. What should I include in a cover letter? So glad you asked, everybody. My advice on a cover letter is always include one. unless you've been specifically told not to. And that's because a cover letter can give more information that's not directly asked for in the, I shouldn't say not asked for, but maybe not showcased as well in your resume. So the cover letter allows you to have one more time to point out any of those really important elements. Also, you guys probably know this or heard me say this. I've spoken to hundreds of employers now, again, over the last 20 some years. Some employers, including government employers, have said that they use the cover letter, the content in the cover letter, to figure out it to help you move you to the interview, meaning you didn't quite cover it in your resume, but your cover letter did a good job. So they'll consider that. And then the other great thing is I've heard employers say they will use the content in your cover letter, if it wasn't clearly provided on your resume, for salary placement. The better your resume and the more prepared you are for the interview, the more leverage you have to negotiate salary. And I know that salary will be talked about in a separate recording, but when you're thinking about how to prepare your cover letter, in most cases, I always recommend using a table format, especially if you're going to apply. I will say this caveat: if you're going to apply for any city, state, or county job, this is the format and the template they recommend using. And it's basically just a table that says, here's what the company is looking for. And to the side of that is exactly how you meet or exceed those expectations. So it's really clear and easy to follow. I'll also put a link for a sample resume and a sample cover letter template at the bottom of this video. And it's pretty self-explanatory. In fact, I give 2 templates because not all, I'm learning that, application tracking systems or applicant tracking systems are evolving, and some companies use them differently. So I'm going to give you another option for a cover letter. If you weren't ready to use the table format for some reason, you're not applying for a government job, and or you just want to play it safe with the applicant tracking systems, you can use that template as well. Check out other videos also below. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4, how do I follow up after an interview? I'm surprised to get this question because out of the thousands of people I've worked with over the years, when I ask, hey, did you follow up after the interview? They always say, no, I didn't know I could. So a big takeaway here is yes, you can. So I'm glad you're asking the question of how. If the job posting says no calls, please, which sometimes they do, then don't call. There's just not a lot you can do. And again, this is under the guise or assuming that you've applied for a job where you don't know anybody at that company, right? But if it doesn't say don't call us, then reach out. Do the legwork, pick up the phone, do the legwork in terms of figuring out who you would contact. More often than not, it's human resources. So figure out who the human resources person is, and you just ask very politely and professionally, hey, my name's Carol Redden. I recently applied for this particular job, this job number. I'm still so very interested in that job, and I wonder if I'm considered as part of the hiring process. It shows that you take initiative. It helps to give you what we call a touch point with employers, meaning the person who you talk to, if you handle the call really well, you planted a seed of professionalism. And so that's really great. But then also you get a really clear answer. If they say no, you know right away. And then you can ask a follow-up question to say, oh, are you able to tell me why I was not included? More often than not, they will tell you, hey, we really were looking for this. Your cover letter didn't have that. Your resume, we couldn't find stuff or whatever. So at least you have that knowledge. So I highly recommend making those follow-up phone calls. Typically, I think 3 business days is appropriate because particularly, I'm shooting this video in 2024, obviously. So employers are, if they're hiring, they're anxious to hire. So I would not give it too many days for sure. Okay, question number 5. I'm trying to decide actually I have a list of 10, so I'm trying to think of which one do I want to talk about the most in terms of keeping it short. Okay, so let's go with just what's listed here. How do I find a job in my field? Also, great question. There's probably 2 hours that I could talk about this, but whether you are a student, a graduate, or a mid-career changer, anybody really who has connections, start with those people, right? I always say start with who you know and work your way out. If you have, and I highly recommend a LinkedIn account, there are a few instances where you might not want to have one, and I'll have a separate video about why that might be for LinkedIn folks. or folks posting on LinkedIn, but assuming you have a LinkedIn account, you can do so many things there. LinkedIn is the only social media that's designed for professional networking and then also doesn't charge you anything. And then also does some networking on your behalf. There are a lot of really cool features in LinkedIn. So you can join groups, for example. And once you're in those groups, if you're not comfortable contributing to the conversations, you can like, share, repost. And then once you are comfortable, start posting your own content so that people in that field start to see you as a voice, or at least someone at the table. Even if, and outside of those groups, keep your LinkedIn profile active. Depending on your job searching status, you might want to say, hey, I'm open to work. And in your headline for LinkedIn, you say something like, I'm seeking, horse training roles. Now, horse training is one that maybe you're on LinkedIn for, and maybe you aren't. That one came to mind because I was just talking to a student who's in that major, equine science. But maybe you are trying to become a marketer on social media. If you don't start talking about the things you're looking for, it's harder to get them to come to you. Like it just takes a little bit longer. So again, how do you find jobs in your field? Start talking to the people you already know. Leverage your existing network. And by the way, when I say leverage your existing network, I don't mean just start asking people for favors. You want to be making deposits into those relationships before you start asking for things. Again, separate video we'll talk about in terms of networking. But before you start needing things, I would start liking other people's posts. Praise them for the great things happening in their lives or their careers. Really start investing in your existing network so that when you do need help, it's not such a big ask, or it doesn't seem like you're just, selfish in that way. So this is a look at the top 5 questions people are asking with regard to job searching. I hope that it has been helpful. And if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments. I will take a look at them for sure and incorporate them into future videos. Bye, everybody.